Do you have a cluttered inbox? Do you want to get to inbox zero? Join me this week on how I create the fastest email experience ever with Jon Wesolowski on the Fanny Dunagan Show. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my show. My name is Fanny Dunagan, and every other week I come to you with content creators and industry leaders that lead with heart. And I am wrapping up. There's only 4 more weeks till school starts. And I feel like this summer has totally flown by. How many of you have felt that speed in which this summer has flown by? I'd love to hear your comments below, but let me know. Let's see who is tuning in this week. Let me see here. Oh, there's Chandra. Hey, Chandra, welcome to the show. My favorite musician or magician and leadership coach, Braden Daniels. Yolanda, welcome. And our guest is in there, Jon. You all are going to be really excited to meet him, and you're going to learn so much. Lindy Chapman, welcome, Lindy, from Dallas. Awesome. Jason Hopper from Plano, Sherry from Capel. I think we're all here to try to clear our inbox, right? Our email overload is nuts. So welcome, everyone. Hey, Chuck. Great to see you on here. Cindy from Grapevine. Awesome. Well, welcome, everybody. Please let everyone know what is your expertise. Share with people what you do, and take this opportunity to network with each other and meet somebody that you didn't know before. Interact with each other in the comments, build community. I challenge you to connect with 3 new people in the comments and build your network. After all, your net worth is equivalent to your network. And these days we it's all about our network, because we just never know what will happen, right? And please tag any of your connections and friends that you think may be struggling with a overwhelming inbox. We're going to talk a lot about tips to increase productivity and how to get down to inbox zero. So please tag anyone that you think would enjoy that conversation. And Ann Small, my community manager, is not here this week. She is out of town. So bear with me as I manage both the show and the comments. But if you have any kind of questions, make sure you put them in there. If I miss it the first time, shoot your question in again, and I will be sure to look for it in the comments so that we can get your questions answered by John. But before I get there, let's go to my content tip of the week. So this week's tip of the week is all because I want to take some time to think again. I've been so busy with work, so busy with the show, and sometimes when you're doing content creation, it really requires time to think and create. And so I thought, it's the middle of the summer, it's wrapping up, school is starting in 4 weeks, and a lot of people are on vacation. And I thought this would be a great time to pause and think again and plan for the second half of the year. And so this will actually be my last show of season 2. More seasons to come in the fall, but I'm just going to be pausing the show after today. And so this is the last season, or last episode of season 2. But my tip of the week is to remind you to pause. Right? We're on this hamster wheel of like doing, work, and hustle, especially all you entrepreneurs out there. And if you can, take some time to pause. And for me, what does that look like? It means creating some time and space to think. And so I'm wrapping up this season of the show. I'm also saying no to a few things and pausing some projects, and so that I can stop and think. And I encourage you to do that as well. A second part of that is then, once you pause, plan, right? Plan out what you want to do. For me, I'm going to plan out my content and strategy for the next 6 months of the year, and that will create space in my head, I find, to really reflect and go for, what I want to do this next 6 months. I have lots of ideas, and rather than pumping out stuff hodgepodge, this is my time to kind of like plan it out. So for you, think, once you pause, then start to formulate a plan of what you want to do for the next few months. And finally, prepare. For me, doing content creation, creating content takes time and planning. So don't just plan and stop there, because talk is cheap, right? Once you plan out something, then start to prepare and create materials, create content, create videos, images, posts, whatever, and get that all scheduled. And then you can start to roll it out as well. So whenever you can, when you start to feel overwhelmed, pause, plan, and prepare for the next phase. And that's my content tip of the week. Okay, and I just wanted to remind everyone as well that I have kicked off launching my unique How to Build Your Unique Brand starter course. And for those of you that are interested in ramping up your brand, defining your uniqueness and your unique offering to your audience, I encourage you to check out my course. It's it will officially launch on Monday, so you guys can get, a little step ahead. But it's called How to Build Your Unique LinkedIn Brand and Create Engaging Video Content. You'll learn everything from why LinkedIn, obviously you guys are all here, is the most powerful platform right now. You'll learn the framework to define your unique and one-of-a-kind brand, and then the 4 types of video content that you can create and how to create an engaged audience around your content. So you're going to get a 6-part video. You can do everything pretty much in 1 hour. So it's like nice and short. It's not going to be overwhelming. And then you're going to get a 17-page workbook with that to get you planning and preparing for your content and rollout. And then a 5-day content calendar so that you can execute on your plan. So you can sign up there. You can see the banner for the course, and I hope you'll check it out. Okay, so now I want to bring on the guest. This week's topic is all around how he created the fastest email experience ever. His name is Jon Wesolowski. I hope I pronounced that right. Don't kill me, Jon. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Jon to the show. Welcome. How are you, Jon?
Hey, I'm doing so great. Thanks for having me on. And don't worry about my last name. I say it Wesolowski. But when I went to Eastern Europe, they told me I mispronounced my own name because it's not exactly how you would say it in Polish. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, Jon's easy to remember, so yeah. We'll go with that.
Yep.
Well, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. This has been, I'm going to tell the backstory to how I came across your product, Superhuman. But we'll get into that in a little bit. I actually saw an Instagram ad, but I want to read your bio real quick for the people out there. So Jon cut his teeth in sales when he entered the SaaS industry. From there, he became interested in training and moved into sales enablement before eventually landing in onboarding. He is passionate about all things productivity, empowering clients, and email. He's a firm believer that a tidy inbox is both helpful and achievable for anyone. And in a dispersed work environment, leaders that can communicate asynchronously will flourish. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Jon to the show. And yeah, that's how I came across Superhuman, because I saw an ad and the ad literally said, want to cut your email time in half. And in my brain, I'm like, yes, please, because that is my pain point. But tell the audience a little bit about your background, Jon, and how you ended up here.
Yeah, so what's crazy is that I was in your seat a few years ago. I was actually an account executive. I was selling a software, and I was really busy, which was great as a salesperson. You want to be busy. You want to be selling stuff. I was having the year of my career, and I heard Seth Godin talk about Superhuman on a podcast. Being completely invitation only, I had to find someone who had it. So I started scouring the internet, found someone who referred me, and I used it, and it totally changed. I can point to 2 deals in the first week that I typically would have missed because of my email, like just the quantity of emails that come in. And so it was from that point, I actually reached out to the president of Superhuman and I said, I want to work for your company. And what's so unique about Superhuman is they didn't have a marketing team. They don't have a sales team still. And they were just like, the product sells itself. Referrals sell it. And they're like, so we don't need a salesperson. And I was like, I'll pivot. I'll go to onboarding. Bring me on. And they offered me a position, but I wasn't ready to move yet. And they weren't hiring remotely. So I annoyed them about once every 6 months, asking them if they're ready to hire remotely, until eventually they did. So I pivoted.
Persistence wins.
Yes. But I had such an experience with the product as a user that I pivoted my entire career from sales to onboarding just to be a part of it. And it's been really exciting. In fact, a few months before I even started to work for Superhuman, I worked in onboarding at another company, and it's been a wild ride, and I'm really excited to be here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if there are any job seekers out there, like, what a perfect example of being a fan of something and then through persistence ending up with a job at like your, the product or service that you love and working for them. Like, that's such a cool story, Jon. I love that. I love that so much. So all you job seekers out there, don't give up. Pursue those companies that you're a fan of their products or services, for sure. Yeah, Gabe says persistence for the win. Shout out to Gabe. For those of you out there, he is an awesome live show as well. So definitely connect with him. Okay, so, you and I got to talking about like email. How do we even end up here, right? Like, I still remember when internet came on board and then like email came on board, and back then it was like so special, like that movie, You've Got Mail, right?
Yeah.
Like, whoa. And like, we couldn't wait to open that email because we didn't get that many. And now we're just so overwhelmed by it, right? Like, what do you kind of see as this evolution of email and what's happened?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up You Got Mail, because I remember like that was a status symbol when AOL would have that guy say You Got Mail. Can you imagine how annoying it would be if 50 times a day there was just You Got Mail, you got, like it would be
I would throw my laptop against the wall.
Yeah. And that's part of the evolution of email. In fact, when we think of email, it's named as if it's just an electronic version of mail, because that's what we anticipated it being. Like, you would get a letter, you'll get an electronic letter. So we call it email, but it's become so much more than that. In your inbox, you get newsletters, reminders and calendar invites, promotions to things you want to save and read later, prospect and business opportunities, communications from your boss, updates on a Google document. So you're inundating with these different, all these different types of mail, not just letter type mail, but we still treat it like it's just regular mail coming in. We treat it like first in, first out, and we don't treat it first in, first out. Instead, I want you to imagine, what if instead of your inbox, it was your desk, right? And what if instead of electronic letter emails, you got actual letters? Well, right now, what a lot of people do is they leave letters in their inbox, and the ones they need to get back to, they mark unread. But what happens is, what if you got 30 letters a day and you just left those envelopes on your desk, and your desk piled up with hundreds of emails over the past couple of weeks? How challenging, how much mental energy would you spend looking through those stacks, trying to find what's valuable and what's not? So in the evolution of email, so many people struggle with, I miss emails, I'm late to respond to them, I open up my inbox and I have anxiety, I put off looking at my inbox. Well, it makes sense, because we're treating our inbox as if it's just, we're receiving regular mail and we're just letting it pile up. Instead, what we should be shooting for is inbox zero, which some people are looking at me and saying, I've got 10,000 emails in my inbox. Ain't no way I'm hitting inbox zero. I promise you can, even just with a regular Gmail account. But I think with email, it's so much more than just getting an electronic letter. It's all those other things I mentioned, reminders, job opportunities, things like that.
It is. And like, I mean, I had a problem. Like, I feel like this is like, this is a support group. I'm like, those red notifications on my phone, like, they were in the thousands. Okay. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I shouldn't even admit to it. But like, so before we even get into the product, right? What are some of your tips of like how to get to inbox zero for anyone, whether they have this product or not? Like, it sounds like a dream, right? Because we all have this pain point. We all have like inboxes that are nuts, right? Yeah. How do we get it to zero?
Yeah. So the first thing is, like, I'm not going to like pull any punches. I work for Superhuman. They are an email experience that helps you get through your inbox twice as fast. And I think anyone with a busy inbox needs Superhuman. However, you can get to inbox zero without it. There's a workflow that will help relieve the anxiety you feel around email. And here's what I would recommend. The first thing is work towards like email debt forgiveness day. And what I mean by this is get those older emails and let's archive them. Archive everything. If you feel like you need emails from the last 30 days, take everything 30 days and older and archive it. It's the equivalent of scraping a pile of letters off your desk and into a drawer. You can go to them when you need them, but they're not going to be in front of you. Anything that is ambiguous in your mind is going to translate into anxiety. So anything that feels unfinished or undecided, your mind is going to process it until it's finished. So the first thing you should do is start with the old emails and archive all those older emails. The second thing you need to do, and this is going to affect some people who are Outlook users or like very like A-type personalities, but you should abandon folders. Now, half the people that hear that, they sigh relief. They think, oh, I've tried folders and failed. I thought I was broken. But I think you should abandon folders. And here's why. When email started, it was hard to find old emails. So folders and labeling emails became crucial. IBM did a study and showed that if you label all of your emails, you'll spend upwards of 60 hours a year labeling them. But now Gmail's search functionality is so accurate, you can just search for an email when you need it. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking, oof, I need to do something with these emails, you're right, but don't folder them. It ends up being a waste of time. It takes more time than it gives back. Yeah. So you should archive them, which is just a general archive, and search for it when you need to find it.
Yeah, I tried the folder method and I had tons of folders. Yeah. Did you have another tip before we go on?
Well, yeah, the last thing I was going to say is always set reminders for future actions. So if you have an email, let's say it's a receipt and you're like, I need to add this to my expense report. I can't archive it or else I'll forget it. I need it in front of me. Well, instead of leaving it in your inbox for the next week, set a reminder. In Gmail, they call this snooze. Superhuman, we have a little bit more of a powerful feature, but essentially have that email come back to your inbox when you need it. That way, emails that you need to work on in the future don't sit there causing background mental energy as they sit there. You can set a reminder, forget about it, and let it come back when you need it. And that's my third tip. So archive all email debt forgiveness, get caught up. 2, you're going to want to abandon folders, just do a general archive. And then 3, set reminders for the future. And if you do that, later I'll share some more tips, but you'll be able to get close to inbox zero and then catch up and then maintain it as you build habits around that.
Awesome. John, you already have a fan. Leslie says, he is my new hero. Thank you. I am terrible at folders.
Yes, yeah. It's so funny. I tell so many people who have a lot of folders, I'm like, I want to set you free. Like you're liberated.
That's free.
Yeah. So I want to tie something into your tip of the week because I read this book called Subtract. And it's this guy talking about the power of removing things rather than adding to become more productive. And one of the most original studies on the power of subtracting was actually on file folders in 1959. And then again, they redid it in 1971. They found that even outside of email, when we obsess over foldering things, it's more for us to feel accomplished than to actually do something productive. So it's just so crazy that your tip of the week corresponds to a book I'm reading this week, which corresponds to the tip that I'm giving to clear out your inbox. It all came full circle for me.
Well, I think our collective society has reached that point, that pain point. Chuck in the comments, he says, I've been inbox zero for 15 years. Congrats, Chuck. That's discipline. That's
awesome.
Yeah. And then Braden asks, how does someone get inbox zero without spending all day in your email inbox? And so now you've heard John's tips, but anything you want to add to answer Braden's question?
Yeah, so one, I'm happy if you share my email with whoever, and if they want to email me and get tips and tricks, even if they're not signing up for Superhuman, they just want it inside of Gmail or Outlook, I'm always happy to send a screen recording, give them ideas, because we're not going to be able to go over all of it here. But to answer the question, The best way to not spend all day getting to inbox zero is two things. One, prioritize your inbox. In Gmail, make sure that the social and the promotions emails are skipping the inbox and going to a separate tab. Secondly, do a triage. So first thing in the morning, every email that's in your inbox, go through and process them. Archive emails you're done with, set reminders for future ones, and then start responding to them. One of the biggest things that takes up our time is context switching. When we open an email, start responding to it, go to the next email. So instead, start your day by just going through all of your emails, making a decision for them, and then start responding to them one by one.
Awesome. Awesome. Jason Hopper said, what is considered late in responding? What do you think is like the standard of you've taken too long to respond to an email? Is there a best practice?
Yeah, so the power of inbox zero is it gives you a 24-hour turnaround. Like you should be able to respond to all of your emails the same day. With that being said, there's all sorts of different etiquette. That is to say, if you're a salesperson and someone says they're ready to sign a contract, like you can't answer that fast enough, right? Whereas if your boss is telling you get the expense report done by the end of the week, then you have a few more days. So with that being said, with inbox zero, your goal should be always within a 24-hour turnaround time. However, always know that that's part of the power of setting reminders. Is some emails, they don't require same-day action, and some emails you want to get to as soon as possible.
Right, for sure. So that all leads to, what is this company that Jon works for? What is Superhuman? For the record, everyone, this is not a paid ad. I'm purely doing this show as a super fan because it's just given me time. Like time is so precious. Having this service has given me time. Okay. And so before Jon answers what is Superhuman, I thought we'd play a video of, a quick overview of what it is. And then Jon, you can add to that. So here we go.
What would you do with an extra 2 hours every day? Introducing Superhuman, the fastest email experience ever made. It's powerful, beautiful, and blazingly fast. Everything from search to send is faster than 100 milliseconds and feels instantaneous. Save time with keyboard shortcuts. Every command is at your fingertips. Fly through your inbox with powerful automations. Nothing holds you back, not even the time it takes to type. Make introductions with a single tap and use personalized snippets for effortless replies. You'll do email faster than you thought possible. Follow up on time, every time. And ensure your message is received. Cut through the noise and never miss an urgent message again. Win back time for what matters. And finally, hit inbox zero. Discover more at superhuman.com.
I love that video. So, Jon, give us a brief overview of Superhuman. Obviously, that was a quick commercial, but how did it even started? Like, what were the origins of Superhuman?
So a couple of things so everyone should know that I didn't start Superhuman. I work in the onboarding team. I'm helping get regular people set up with their accounts. But Superhuman started with our CEO, Rahul. He had just sold his company, Reportive, and it was an internet extension. And he started to realize something. And he had the foresight to realize asynchronous communication was not going anywhere. Email is still going to be important and still going to be vital moving forward, even with technology. But it's something that brings a lot of us anxiety. Now, some of his background and experience was in game design. So he thought, how can we make email something that is delightful to use that it saves more time than what we're doing now. It's not as much as a time suck. And then it's a true asset to our business. And something that he said recently in a meeting, he says, we don't create a product as much as we create an experience. And really, the software is a byproduct of the true product, which is a delightful experience. So Superhuman aims to help increase the speed with which you move through your inbox, reply to emails, and then keep that asynchronous communication up and running so that you don't miss opportunities in your business or within your business.
Awesome. I just wanted to share like the website there. It's superhuman.com. And you can certainly check out more of what it is. But what I find fascinating is that, like, to your point, you use the word delight, right? Which is, it's not like a common word that people may necessarily say when I create email service, let's delight them. Right? It's more about like, functionality almost. But what did it mean? What did he mean by to delight the customer or have a delightful experience?
Yeah, so delight has come to take on a whole new face in the software industry. And delight is being defined as surprising joy. Disappointment is when you are surprised by something that frustrates you, but delight is surprising joy. It's when your expectations are met and exceeded. Think about, I think companies that are good at this is like In-N-Out Burger with their secret menu. When you find out that you can order something that's not on the menu, you have this little experience of exclusivity, and that's a delightful moment from a customer's perspective. Or when you find out your iPhone's new update does this thing that you've been hoping it would do one day, like that's a delightful moment. So instead of just setting the bar of how do we make email less painful, they thought, how do we make email delightful?
Yeah, it's true. Because so one of the features that I know, I'm a very aesthetic person, right? So I love looking at beautiful things and pictures and all that. And one of the things where, like, if you hit inbox 0 at Superhuman that day, then you get this beautiful image, right, on your screen, right? It's so simple, right? Okay, so yes, they put a beautiful image on the screen, but it's like that little touch that I find so, I guess, delightful, right? Because it's not just like you hit inbox 0. It's like, here's this beautiful image to maybe like brighten up my day, and a lighthouse or whatever it is. And so it's like this little extra detail that I find so delightful and fascinating about Superhuman.
Yeah, it's something inside software or inside your customer experience. You can put little breadcrumbs that encourage the behavior that you want your customers to experience and feel. And recently this happened with me. My wife and I, for our anniversary, we decided we were going to buy a really expensive coffee grinder. And we've been thinking about this coffee grinder for a long time. It's really a ridiculous price. You should never spend this much on a coffee grinder, but we did. And when I got it, I had high expectations. And I want to tell you about the silliest thing that brought me delight. Please. When I went to put the container into where the coffee grinder, the receptacle goes, it clicked into place. It had this built-in magnet that just felt like it's in the right place. It works. And that quality that I wasn't anticipating made me just step back. And I even told my wife, I was like, oh my goodness, there's a magnet. It clicks. It's so dumb. It's so little, but it's how our brain works. It's telling you that this is a good investment. So my brother-in-law works for Volkswagen. And one of the things they measure is the feel of the thunk of the door when you close the door. Because if it feels heavy, but moves effortlessly, your mind will interpret it as quality. Now, why would Volkswagen spend so much time to have someone whose full-time job is to measure that thunk? It's because if you pull that door closed and you're interpreting it as quality, and you jump into a rental car and it's not a Volkswagen and it feels cheap, every time you close a car door that's not your car, it's affirming the fact that you bought the right car. So this idea of design continuing to sell the product so you don't experience that buyer's remorse is so important. And that's what some of these breadcrumbs you experience inside of Superhuman. It's reminding you this is how you feel now that your inbox is empty. This is
Yeah.
Zen moment, this beautiful landscape or something like that.
It's so true. I mean, for me, it's like Disney, right? Like I took our or like we went on a Disney cruise years ago. I still remember it. And like you get the same waiter for every meal. So then they remember all your preferences. So by like the second night, my mom likes hot water with lemon. And so like they had that hot water with lemon on the table before she even sat down. Like just
Wow.
Those little things, to your point, right? It makes such a world of difference. But you also mentioned like game design, right? And flow. How do those factor into, like I hear game design being talked about in so many different products now, but how did it factor in Superhuman?
Yeah, so the first thing, when you think game design, I don't want you to think of gamification. The goal isn't to turn everything into a game. So it's not like, hey, now your inbox is the boss, and if you beat the boss, you get this many points, and try to make 100 points a week. That's cheap, and everybody tries that. And it doesn't work for all of us, especially doesn't work for me. You can't just turn everything into a game. But what game design does is it tries to figure out what are those psychological aspects that draws us into a game, that makes us want to continue and persevere when things are hard, that feels rewarding when we accomplish it. And how can we build that into our software? Which, by the way, game design isn't something you just have to build into, or you just have it as an opportunity if you're building software. You can do this for any type of business. You can really build out or think of game design. And in Superhuman, it looks something like this. When you start to do your email triage, when you're going into inbox zero, when you're deciding, am I done with an email? Do I need to work on it today or some other day? Superhuman brings the next email in front of you. And as soon as you make a decision about that email, it brings the next one in front of you. It allows you to continue on in a serial manner and just, without breaking focus, power through 40 emails in a minute and a half. And that sense of flow you can only attain if one, the software is prompting you through it, whereas Gmail, or if you were to archive something, it would take you out of that view and then you'd have to jump back in. And then two, if you make it easy enough to do. And so with Superhuman, we're going to use a lot of keyboard shortcuts to easily archive things. And that's where you can start clearing out your inbox and it almost feels like those same emotions you experience with a game. This is challenging, but I want to keep going, and it feels rewarding.
Oh, for sure. Like there's a reward, right? Like I actually wanted to share real quick so let me share my screen real quick of my inbox. So I did clear stuff this morning. So right now I just have like, can you guys see it? Yeah. So right now I have like one email in my inbox, right? So this is what happens when you clear it. And I think I'm guessing it ties into the game design side. So as soon as I finally clear it, so let's say I clear this thing, then it like takes me to this beautiful image. And then it's like, you've hit inbox zero 7 weeks in a row, achievements. And it's so like small. It's a small detail, but yet so gratifying too. So I just love that part of it. And I guess that's how game design kind of came to be. Did we lose you, John? Maybe John lost sound. But yeah, for those of you out there, I mean, like, I'm not trying to be a commercial for them. I think it's just fascinating what's happening, and this really great feature of Superhuman. And so while we wait for Jon to come back, there he is.
Hey, yes. Hey, thank you. So before, Fanny, you were talking about an issue you had before with a live guest, and I was like, I'm so glad that I'm prepared. And then my monitor charger went out, and I was like, I got to go grab another charger. So thanks for bearing with me.
No, I just kept on babbling. So yes, no, I was just showing off my, my inbox zero and the pretty picture that I ended up on once I hit it. But I was just saying, like, that little thing of like giving me like this almost like stamp of approval, right? It's like when we're kids and we're in kindergarten and we get a little gold star for good behavior. I feel like, you know, when I get this image and I hit inbox 0, then it's like my gold star equivalent. It's silly, but I love it. But was that one of the factors, like, you know, to tie in that game design side of it?
Yeah, so this idea of knowing when you're finished or when you're caught up is important. And I feel like it's not just that like a picture has the power of, or a gold star has the power for you to just be like, oh, I'm right, or I'm winning. It's just the idea of knowing I'm done, I've completed it. Because that's one of the hardest things, is to sign off of email and not feel like you have unmet tasks, right? So in some ways, your mind continues the process. Did I get to everything? Did I do everything? Let me check it one more time. Let me open up my phone. But when you hit that image in Superhuman, you know, I can turn this off right now and I will be good to go right now. You know, I can relog in the morning and the right emails will be waiting for me.
Absolutely. And guys, like, you know, outside of Superhuman itself, like, feel free to drop in your comments about like any kind of email comments or questions that you have for Jon, productivity questions. Drop them in the comments below and we'll be sure to address it. I saw one from, I think, Shane Ryan. Welcome, Shane. He said, this is amazing psychological perspective. How can we remind customers that they made the right decision? For sure, right? Like it affirms, right? Once they try the product, that they chose it for the right reason. And then you create super fans like me. But you also mentioned flow, right? Like, how does flow factor into the design of Superhuman or anything in general?
Yeah. So I'll start with Superhuman and then I'll just talk about flow in general. Or actually, let me start with flow. The idea here, or the myth that a lot of us perceive, is this idea of multitasking, that we can do a lot of things at one time. But when you look closely at what's happening in the brain, when you feel like you're multitasking, you're actually switching in between tasks really quickly. And what's happening is the inertia of switching back and forth is slowing you down from completing either task. I want to give an example of this, a real life example. My wife and I moved downtown and my job was a mile away. And I convinced her to let me buy a nice bike because I told her we wouldn't need a car now that we live downtown, or we wouldn't need a second car now that we live downtown, and I'll ride my bike to work. I could ride a straight shot to my work and it was less than a mile. I could take a bike path and it would be almost 2 miles. The bike path, almost being double the length of the straight shot to work, was a little bit faster than taking the 1 mile path. And the reason was there were stop signs. Now those stop signs, I rarely had to wait for traffic. I just had to stop at the sign and go. But every time I stopped, I had to restart and get going again. And so the idea here is that I could cover twice the amount of ground if I achieved a sense of flow, if I didn't have to stop. Now, inside of Superhuman, one of the first things you saw in that commercial of Superhuman was that everything happens within 100 milliseconds. Google did a study and found that if something happens faster than 100 milliseconds, your mind interprets it as instantaneous, and so it doesn't sidetrack you. So every time you wait for a page to load for 1 or 2 seconds even, it stops your mind from continuing to move forward in the task. Whereas if the software can react faster than you can perceive it, then you're gonna keep moving forward to the next thing and the next thing. So you're gonna feel like you're in the right spot and you're gonna do the right thing when you achieve that sense of flow.
Absolutely. And like I've been studying like time blocking as well, right? And that's like such a, you know, like, so allocate certain days just for creative work, allocate certain days just for meetings. So then we're not like, and I do find it hard to like go from a meeting in Zoom to like, okay, now I got to do a flyer or design, you know, edit a video or something. And then my brain is like, it takes a while to adjust from like the left side to the right side of the brain almost.
Yeah. So the first thing I think the first thing you have to do is like fully convince yourself that context switching is sapping your productivity. And one way I did this was I thought, in high school, I ran the 400 meter race, but I only ran it in the relay because I wasn't fast enough to start it. And one time the coach said to me, he was saying, you're distracted, you're not running as straight as you can. He was giving me all this stuff, and he said, you could beat the fastest runner in the Olympics if you got to run 400 yards straight and they had to go back and forth for 5 yards at a time, because that stopping and starting, going back and forth would actually be slower than a typical high school student running in a straight line. Yeah. So once you convince yourself that context switching saps my energy, you will start to commit to it. So that's the first thing. Time blocking is that commitment. I'm going to do one thing now. The second thing is, and this actually goes outside of technology and everything else, is start creating habits of focus. I was the same way in college, where I sometimes got distracted. And so I started deciding, you know what, my homework computer, I'm not going to use it for anything else except for homework. My work computer is my work computer, and it stays in this part of the house or this part. And that way, subconsciously, my brain tells me when I get here, I work. And that's what the design of a software should be, is when you open it up, it's like, this is its purpose and this is what you're here to do. Let's get it done.
Absolutely. Braden also suggested using timers, and that's been helpful, and it helps grab time. Thank you, Braden. And Shane, I'm going to get to your question, but I thought I would, Shane was asking, like, you know, and I think he's a customer as well, right? How do you change your workflow? I keep finding myself using Gmail and Superhuman. But before we get to that question, Shane, I thought maybe like, John, you can show us maybe a little bit of some of these cool features. I know that, like, for me, like Command K and like shortcuts and reminders have been like a heaven sent for me. Can you show us some of that? I'm going to add your screen.
So a couple of things. Is my screen showing? Does it look good now?
Yes.
Awesome. So inside of Superhuman, the first thing you should notice is that it's very minimal. There's not a lot of things grabbing your attention. Now, in Gmail, you have to have a lot of menus and submenus and folders, and Superhuman has that too. But instead of just having it front and center, we're actually going to give you a keyboard shortcut to bring it up. So you can hit that keyboard shortcut and have access to any menu. And because of this, no matter where you are in the screen, you can have access to things. You don't have to say, oof, I need to add a calendar. Do I go to settings, subsettings, general? You could just type in something like calendar settings, and it's right there, and you're ready to change your calendar settings. But in the same way, Superhuman's going to let you take every action you need to take with a keyboard shortcut. So let's imagine I need to send an email to Fanny. I have a shortcut where I can just hit the letter C, and I'm composing an email. I start to type in the name Fanny, and her email comes up. And I want to invite her to coffee, and I do this enough that I have a template for it. So I just grab the coffee template and then check it out what happens. It automatically puts her name in it. It says, hey, Fanny, are you ready for coffee? And I'm going to send this off. Now, here's the thing. Fanny, you're so busy. I want this to hit your inbox first thing in the morning. I don't want to be buried behind the newsletters or the sales outreaches. So I'm going to schedule this email to hit your inbox at 8 a.m. But here's the thing. I live in the East Coast, and you are in the you're in the Dallas area, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
You're in Central Time?
Yes.
So I'm just going to type in 8 a.m. Dallas, and now this email is going to hit your inbox at 8 a.m. in Dallas's time.
Wow.
And I'm going to put a reminder so that if you don't get back to me at 9 a.m., this email will come back to me to let me know to reach back out to you. So
I don't even know that shortcut. I need to.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You'll learn things over time. It's almost like Easter eggs. You like find them and you get excited about them. But think about what just happened there. I went from composing an email to having it composed. It automatically had your name in it. It's scheduled to go out at the right time in your time zone. And an hour after it sends, it's going to remind me to follow up with you if I haven't heard back from you.
And that was less than a minute.
Yeah, and that's where Superhuman gets its name. We want to give you superpowers inside of your email. Yeah. Now, everyone that was watching that, it may have been so fast and you're like, that overwhelms me. Don't worry. Every person that comes to Superhuman, you get a one-to-one onboarding where we set up your inbox how you need it to be set up. And then also we make sure that you feel trained and equipped with it so that moving forward, you can use it just as fast as I just did.
Yeah. And I want to get into that onboarding process because that's very, very special. But before I do that, let's go back to Shane's question, because I find myself doing this too. And it's whether it's this email or any kind of thing, right? Like whenever we switch to a new product or a new service, we're still learning that new thing, right? And at the same time, we have the old thing. And because the old thing, even though it's longer, but because we're familiar with it, we still go back to these old habits sometimes before we can fully learn that new thing, right? Like, do you have something for us to kind of like manage this transition stage of like, I haven't quite let go of Gmail, but I know Superhuman has more, and like, what do you say to that?
So a couple of things. Yeah, I used to work with Shane. Actually, he's one of my favorite people. And I love this question because I didn't even put him up to it. He's just like tossing me a softball, it seems like. But I will say this, a couple of things. Change is hard.
Yes.
One, because we're wired to do what's worked for us in the past, even if it hasn't worked well. And that's where we come to this idea of subtraction neglect. I mentioned that book earlier. And subtraction neglect is something that's blowing my mind. So let me show you that, or talk about subtraction neglect for a second.
Yeah.
It's this idea that if I give you a problem, your first idea of a solution will be to add something. So if I said, Fanny, make this recipe, it's really good, but it comes out a little bitter.
Subtraction neglect?
Subtraction neglect.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Go on.
So if I were to give you a recipe and say, hey, Fanny, here's a recipe. It's pretty good, but it's a little bitter. Your first instinct will be, what do I add to make it less bitter? Whereas there's an opportunity to remove something to make it less bitter. Or if there's two Lego towers and I say they need to be equal, you could either add bricks to one or remove bricks from the other, but our instincts are always to add bricks. So why am I bringing up subtraction neglect? Well, because throughout most of human history, adding brings us success. But we're now at a point in our history where we've added so much that there are unseen opportunities for removing things to succeed. So when you're going back to Gmail, that is you trying to go back to what you know. Gmail adds on a lot of features. It's comfortable, but you have to know that there's opportunity in reducing and removing and simplifying. And if I could give one example, it would be Apple. I want to talk about the cell phone war of 2005. They had a problem. We started using text on our phones more than ever. And so we're thinking we need a keyboard with more buttons, right? So people created bigger keyboards, but it made a smaller screen. So some people made smaller keyboards with a bigger screen, but it made the keys hard to type. Some people made big screens and big keyboards, but it made the phones so big or had a lot of moving parts. Apple came in and said, no keyboard, all screen. And what's powerful about this is they removed something. And a lot of haters out there were saying BlackBerry is always going to win. We need keyboards. And Apple was very intentional about it. When you first tapped on buttons, it had that feedback where the phone vibrated, so you knew you were hitting a button. They had to do a lot of stuff in the design to convince us that a screen was better. But Apple won not by creating a better keyboard, but by removing it completely. And that's the opportunity that exists now. So going back to Shane's question.
I never thought of it like that. Wow.
Yeah, and it's actually a superpower that Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out have too, right? They actually pare down. They subtract from their menu because they realize we can be fast, we can be inexpensive, and we can be quality, but we can't do that with too many things on our menu. So in In-N-Out, they have like 4 things on their menu.
Yes.
Chick-fil-A, they have more on their menu, but if something ever comes onto their menu, they remove something else. So they realize we can only do excellence for this amount of things, and by taking away stuff, that's the real opportunity. But we're wired to try to add things, and that's what subtraction neglect is. So Shane, going back to your email, the biggest thing with Gmail is you have to recognize the opportunity. Simplifying and removing some of that stuff that's weighing you down it's going to totally increase the speed and the opportunity you have for communication with your clients.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. You like threw all these things all at the same time, Jon.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
my brain is still catching up. But that's so true. Like the BlackBerry Apple thing, right? Like I still remember there were so many advocates of BlackBerry. They're like, never will I leave BlackBerry, because they could like do that quick, keyboard thing so fast, right? And now like I don't know anybody that has a BlackBerry.
Yeah.
Right? Like
so
nobody's phone has a keyboard, whether it's Android or iPhone. Wow.
So 2 things in regards to the BlackBerry thing. One, BlackBerry had a genius keyboard. If you ever find a BlackBerry, look at the keyboard. They were almost shaped like little pyramids, and it allowed them to make the buttons smaller, but you accidentally wouldn't press 2. So it was a brilliant keyboard. And then also I want to talk about Apple. Apple didn't just say, touch the screen, get used to it. They did things like skeuomorphic design, which is when you make something that's 2-dimensional look 3-dimensional. They don't do it as much anymore because they don't need to, but early on, everything in Apple looked bubbly and 3D and had a sheen because they wanted you to feel like you were touching something 3D. It vibrated and made a ticking noise when you hit a button because they wanted you to feel like you were hitting a button. And now if someone has their keyboard sound turned on and it's going tick, 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 you're a little bit annoyed by it. But we have to remember when it came out and Apple first did that, everyone was like, this feels so cool. I'm actually hitting a keyboard. So you have to give credit on both sides. One, BlackBerry made the best possible keyboard you could ever make, and that's why people were convinced. They were like, this is a genius little keyboard. Yeah. But at the same time, Apple did a lot of work to convince us to move away from the keyboard.
Oh my God, Jon. Well, you'll have to come back and maybe we could like geek out over design and like productivity books or something. I love it. Okay, that's for another day. Let's go to this unique onboarding process. And for those of you out there in the audience, I'm not saying go buy Superhuman, okay? But I want to point out some of these unique things that I think would apply to any service or any company that has a customer onboarding process or is thinking of a customer onboarding process. Because I was very delighted, right, to use that word again, by the onboarding process. And actually, your colleague, Carrie, so shout out to Carrie, introduced me, like she onboarded me, because so I found the ad on Instagram, darn those Instagram ads, but it took me here. Yeah. And then I went to the website, and then eventually I landed getting in onboarding with Carrie. And then she took me through it, right? But it was a one-on-one onboarding process. Like I could ask her any question. I booked a Zoom with her, and then she just kind of like helped me with my inbox, and then we just got started. She like demonstrated it. She applied it to my inbox directly, and so I immediately saw the results. And like, tell me what the decision and the thinking was behind doing this kind of one-on-one onboarding with every customer.
Yeah, so early on, we knew that Superhuman was going to be a paradigm shift. We're going to be asking people to do things differently, experience things differently. And so it felt like a one-to-one onboarding was necessitated. But what started to happen is there were what would be called a curb cutting effect. So the curb cutting effect comes from this concept where when they would cut curbs so that it could have a ramp, right? So they would think in order for people who were wheelchair riders, in order for them to use this sidewalk, we need to add ramps to the sidewalk. So they would cut the curb. But they found that whenever they cut curbs, other people would now use the sidewalks more often. People pushing carts or strollers, cyclists and rollerbladers. So the curb cutting effect stands for unintended good consequences that came about. So not only did it bring about the consequences you wanted, but there was unintended good consequences. So when Superhuman started onboarding people, they found that one, the usage rate of our software was through the roof compared to other companies. But two, we can now see live reactions of when a customer liked something or something was hard so that we can make it easier. It caused Superhuman to get this really become this really product focused company, because we saw hundreds of live reactions to people in the software. And each onboarding experience is different. An onboarder is almost like a DJ curating an experience for that person who needs it. So we thought, let's onboard people and maybe we'll charge for it down the road. And then we realized, why would we ever charge for it down the road? It's something that brings us immense value. So we're going to scale it. And so many people came to the onboarding experience and were like, this is something that isn't scalable. But what I really appreciate about Superhuman is they say, let's find what works. And then we're going to troubleshoot to figure out how to scale it. And that's what happens. When you sign up for Superhuman, you're offered a one-to-one onboarding experience, whether you're the CEO of a giant corporation or if you just have your own little accounting firm, you know, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love that. And then like to your point, like you got instantaneous feedback and then you're collecting feedback and then doing modifications and improvements. So 2 in 1.
Yeah.
Or multiple
sure.
in one, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we kind of look to the future now, right? Like what's the future of Superhuman? What's coming up next?
Yeah. So the first thing is, for all of these years, Superhuman has been invite only. So you've had to know someone who had it and they had to send you a referral. Now, some of you might be thinking, wait, I saw some Instagram ads. I saw some Facebook ads. We still have a huge wait list of people that are waiting to be onboarded. That's part of the challenge of live onboardings, is we've created sort of this demand. It's like seeing a restaurant with a line running outside the door. That's Superhuman. But the ads we've put out that attracted someone, you know, like you, Fanny, is we're trying to figure out new customer profiles. Because originally this idea was high-level executives at huge tech companies who are very tech savvy need to be better at email. And then we realized, no, everybody needs to be better at email. And in a post-COVID world, everybody is using asynchronous communication now that they work remotely or they have colleagues that are virtual. And so where Superhuman is now, we're broadening our audience. So if you get one of those Instagram ads, you're actually one of the chosen few. You're one of those people that we want to join, and you get to skip the wait list. Now, if you are interested in Superhuman, Fanny, you can talk about this later, but Fanny can refer you and you will get a free month. And she said this earlier, she's not a paid affiliate or anything.
I'm not.
She can refer you to give you that free month to get the onboarding. Yeah, so the future of Superhuman, it's broadening our audience. Right now, we're Gmail-based. So if you have a Gmail-based email address, you can use Superhuman. But we're working on releasing an Outlook 365. And so we'll be expanding to Outlook in the very near future. So even if you're Outlook, still reach out to Fanny or to me, share my email address. Fanny, I'm happy to help. But that's the future of Superhuman, broadening the audience of who has access to Superhuman. I
love it. So for all of you out there, whether you want Superhuman or not, make sure you connect with Jon, because I've been following his content, and just like today, he has all these cool nuggets of information. And if you're a geek like me, or just generally curious about things, there's all kinds of cool stories you have, Jon. I think you're like a super learner. So, yeah, definitely connect with him, follow his content. I've really been enjoying it myself. And then, like he said, right now, Superhuman's referral based only and waitlist. But if you want to send me an email, my email's right there with subject line Superhuman. You can skip the waitlist and get your first month free. And we can even quote the price, right? It's $30 a month. And yes. And I think when people, I certainly felt it when I first heard that. I'm like, are you kidding me? $30 a month. But then I thought about it further. I'm like, that's $1 a day. And I'll pay $1 a day to cut my inbox in half and get to zero. So for me, it's totally worth it and life-changing. So yeah, drop me an email and I can get you to skip the wait list. And again, full disclosure, I'm not being paid. I just become a super fan. So There you go. And Shane was just quick shout out to Shane. Shane's like, Command K. Yes. That's when you guys get on. That's like the coolest feature. It literally pops up a menu of all their controls and their shortcuts. So email me, get your free month, and skip the wait list. Anything you'd like to add before we close out, Jon?
Nope. I put my email in the comments.
Awesome.
Email Fanny for your referrals. But if you're just Superhuman, you're not quite ready for it, and you just want help with your inbox, I am open to help. Jon at Superhuman. I'm not here. I'm excited to see people get more productive and more responsive, and whatever I could do to help, I'm happy to be there.
Yeah. And I think for me, if nothing else out of this conversation, like subtract instead of add. Subtract instead of add. Let's do that, because we have so much and we're so overwhelmed. Subtract instead of add. I love it. So Jon, stay right there. I'm just going to close out with some upcoming events here, and then we'll close out together. So for all of you out there, thank you for tuning into this show. Any technology people out there that are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, make sure you join me at the Association of Business Technology Professionals on Tuesday. That's the coming Tuesday, July 27th at 6 p.m. And it is in person only at the Las Colinas Country Club. Sven Gurgitz, who is the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer of Mattel, is having a fireside chat with our president of the Association on Technology, Leadership, and Life. How cool is that to work at Mattel? So if you are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, please join us at the Las Colinas Country Club to hear that conversation on July 27th. And you can register at abtpdfw.org. And for those of you that have enjoyed these episodes, as I was saying, this is my last episode of season 2. Season 3 will begin in the fall, while I take some time to pause, plan, and prepare to subtract, right? But in the meantime, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, all the past episodes are there, as well as almost 40 content tips on how to create content for LinkedIn. So make sure you subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the fall. I can't wait. But in the meantime, I'll be doing all that planning and creating. So Jon, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so glad Carrie introduced us. I'm so glad Superhuman was created. And I love all your cool stories and tips on design and productivity. Love it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been a complete blast, and I just look forward to continue to watch your content, to get to know your community. Seems like you got something really special going on, just watching
I love my positivity,
the connection happening in the comments. So I'm so happy to just be a part of it now.
Awesome, people. Awesome. So I always want to wrap up by saying here, continue to share your gifts, continue to share your messages, and continue to shine your light. And I hope you do it through video so people can see you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jon. And have an amazing rest of your summer. And I will see you all in the fall. Bye.
Bye.